YouTube. I'm going to try and do a normal video for clickbait reasons. Yes, so Strat or Telly. For the purposes of this, I will be not using a real Fender because I don't. Well, I do actually have one. There's one actually sitting here. So there you go. So I do have a Fender one, but I'm playing this one. So this is an old 70s Japanese copy. Also, Telecaster. Not the perfect Telecaster for Telecaster demonstrating because this one is a custom, deluxe, custom, deluxe, whatever one. It's a 71 or 72. So it's got 4 knobs and it's got a humbucker. Switches here instead, but still, a normal telly would be laid out more like that. 2 single coils and a metal plate. But again, 70s copies. So when you're starting out playing the guitar, should you buy a Strat or a telly first? Buy a telly. If you're buying a new one, totally just for purely monetary reasons. It's dead easy here in Britain, anywhere in Scotland. Anyway, it's dead easy to get Strat copies. You can get them anywhere. Tellies, which is, the lighting's really bad for it. Look at that one. Which are that shape, are, although they're the same price new, like a Squire one or whatever, second hand you can't get them. So just for that reason I would buy or one of the reasons for a telly first. They're not as, I mean, I just like, I'm not as old as I am. Does that make sense? So for me, an electric guitar was Hank Marvin and the Shadows, which is very much what a kid in the 60s would have thought, but that just happened to be one of the tapes because my dad had one of my first Walkman, so I was always aware of electric guitar, and it was the red Strat. So for me, it was always that sound, which is what a Strat's good at, you know. And it's the iconic shape for an electric guitar. I think I just get put off on them a little bit because there's so many cheap copies. That's the one everyone wants. And I just think if you're going to make a cheap copy of a guitar, there's some fundamentals on a Telecaster that are easier to make, cheaper. Yeah. So, like, Telecaster, very similar construction. So you've got a separate neck, bolts on, bolt-on necks are fine. Often in a Fender you get a maple fretboard as opposed to Gibsons and other types. I quite like the maple fretboard. Different neck profile, but similar thing, bolted to a body, but a Telecaster just has, the bridge is just a bent piece of metal. So it really, my thinking is, it doesn't really matter how cheap you make that bit, if it's that kind of design, it's just designed to be simple. It's also through strung on the back, so you get a different feel to the strings because it's more solid. It's just something you can get cheaper. I did pay nearly 50 quid for the one for that, which is basically the same thing, just because it's an expensive guitar, so I bought an expensive one. Whether I would have noticed any different if I just used a cheap one, wouldn't have looked as nice. And it's just got a 3-way switch and 2 pickups. So you've got, well, the original telly wiring was not, it was different, but basically the 3 sounds are bridge pickup, both pickups, neck pickup, and all those sounds are good. A Strat's not as easy as that. So instead of that, you've got 3 pickups. Well, neck's basically the same. Okay, it's a different shaped headstock, make a difference. Also a slightly different profile neck normally, although you do get tellies with Strat type necks and Strats with telly type necks, just feel wise. Generally a bit sleeker on a Strat, a bit thinner. A Telecaster's kind of getting more towards like an acoustic-y type thing. A little bit. The thing that I'm not so keen on these is the bridge unit, which I suppose it's quite easy. You've got 2 options really. One is if you're a beginner or you're not fully into the Strat, what you do is on the back there, there's three springs tightened to a claw. It's like a claw thing with 2 screws in it. Tighten it up fully. Like when you're changing the strings, tighten it up fully so the bridge just sits flat against the body, and then unscrew the bar and keep it in the case for when you sell the guitar. That, if you're a beginner, just do that. Don't try and make the whammy bar work. It's just, which is nice to have, and I understand that. I mean, when I wanted a first guitar, it was like, oh, I want a Strat because it's got the whammy bar, because I don't think anyone really knows what a whammy bar does. Also, the first thing is people always do that with it as well, and that's not how you move it. It goes in and out. do quite like it. They're nice when they're set up, but you have to get it set up right. So, but what it has to be floating, which means that you have to be able to bend it up the way. About a note, I think, and down. If it's not floating, it doesn't return to. It's not still in tune when you go back to it. So you'll find that most beginners tune the guitar, get the whammy bar and go wah wah wah, and then everything's moved and they have to tune it again. And once it starts going, once that cycle starts going, it's just not worth it. When you've got a guitar set up well, it's good. Also, with a cheaper Strat, this is like, there's an awful lot more parts to this. So we've got 6 individual saddles, 6 screws, 6 springs, 12 grub screws, and then you've got a metal plate held onto the body with 6 screws, and then a metal block on the back. All these things, it's not quite the just bent piece of metal like a telly is. You know, there's an awful lot more to this. So in order to make it cheap, they make them really shit. You get bridges. I've had bridges. My pal gave me one. Said, "Here, look at this," and chucked it to me. And honestly, you would have thought it was made of air or a sponge or something. It weighed nothing. It looked like that, but weighed, I don't know, 1/10 as much. You can just get them so made out of stuff that looks like metal, and technically it is metal, but you know, good guitars are made of steel, whereas or actual metal, not metal with lots of, you know, the stuff they make die-cast cars out of, that kind of stuff, proper stuff. Yeah, so this we've got 3 pickups, volume and a tone for each of these, and no tone for the bridge, and a standard Strat. This is an old one, so it's got the original just 3 sounds: neck, middle, and then a spiky bridge. And all guitars, Hendrix used to do this, used to wedge between position. Oh. But most modern Strats, in fact, Fender started doing it in the 80s. I've now got a 5-way switch, which is just a 3-way switch, but it's got an extra notch, so when you've got it in the middle, between this pickup and this pickup, you get both at the same time. You can do that by wedging the 3-way switch on the old ones. Strings on this are dead old. That one's dead buzzy when it's... And I think it's just the age of the string, looking at the rust on it. It's like, there's not really much else that can be... It buzzes on the... It kind of does it on the highest fret, so it's not a fret. I suppose the thing is, if you're buying a second-hand guitar, the cheapest one you can get is probably alright. It's probably a Squire Strat. Something like that is probably your best bet. Just because, as I said, the Strats are worth much less than what the Telecasters are. I think people like Tellies more once they're into the guitar, because they're not as cool. I mean, I'd never even seen a Telly when I started playing a guitar. I was like, a Telecaster? What is that? It's like, oh, that's the earlier one, the basic one, or whatever, which in some ways it sort of is. This is obviously came after the Telly. The Telly was the first ever proper solid body electric guitar, mass produced and bolt on neck, and lots of innovations that never really existed before. Almost a new instrument. Like when Gibson came out with the Les Paul, they kind of made it somewhere between a Telecaster and an acoustic, you know, and a classical, not a classical guitar, but you know, a traditional guitar. They kind of made it a bit less extreme. But if I go into the Telecaster, so they're a bit. Maybe it's because my first guitar was a Strat. It was a shit one, because all shit. You know, that was it. I mean, I think you're probably looking at, if you're looking at guitars, say second-hand electric guitars under £100. I should probably do a video on that. In fact, I think I'll do I haven't done a video with my mic and stuff set up yet. Under £100, I think 9 out of 10 of them are going to be a Strat copy. Doesn't mean they're good or bad, but just 9 out of 10 of them are going to be a Strat copy. Tellies are much rarer, but they're very. It's so basic. There's so little to go wrong, and it feels different. This one's actually got a contour in the back because it's a Tele Custom, which you shouldn't have. But like for a real telly. But these are so much more in your face. They're players' guitars. I mean, I get it. They don't look as good. This is a terrible lighting for doing it. I don't think it'll get any better if I close the curtain. I'm kind of waiting for a knock on the door. For those murders I did. No, waiting for a what's in the bag video. Or what's in the box. So, I suppose the Fenders in general are both very spiky when you're on the bridge pickup. There's a lot of fashion involved in these. These were really, when they came out, I don't think they were that. They were quite popular when they came out. Keith Richards had one, blah, blah, blah. I'm talking about the Fender ones, not the copies. This is 1974, so kind of basically the Japanese going, all right, we're just going to copy you. And they did a really good job. In many ways, it's actually an improvement on the Fender one. It's got like Japanese like to put screws here on the bridge plate, which holds the front down. What? Why is that not on the original telly? Should be. Wee things like that. This pick up backwards. It's got innovations that are in many ways better. Also, it doesn't weigh 3/4 of a ton like the original Fenders do. But I would almost argue that basically for beginning playing, it's a much better guitar. I think it sits. It's an awful lot more like an acoustic. It's kind of almost. The neck is more acoustic-y. It lends itself better to strumming. Also partly to do with the fact it doesn't have the trem. It makes it more solid, more resonant. Well, this one does have a humbucker in it rather than a single coil in the neck. Sometimes, so the three sounds you get on this are all awesome. With a decent neck pickup, that FGN does have a decent neck pickup. Sometimes the Tele neck pickup's a bit weak or a bit strong. I can't remember which way around it is. A bit muffled sounding. Sometimes it's not bright enough. That one is. So you end up with basically what a Strat neck sound, and then the middle sound, which is the two pickups all together, is glorious, and then the bridge pickup, partly because the bridge is set in this metal plate, and the shape of the pickup and all these things give it a different sound to a Strat. Although I don't know how much of that's just the fact it's a hardtail. Some switch clear on this. This was quite strange having a humbucker in it. But I really like this one. So what this video was actually going to be, I was going to be which one, if I had to have one of them, would I have this or the Tempest. The Tempest probably in slightly better condition. But I'd have the Tele, I think. Or just straight up, this is a more desirable guitar than this, because this is just another Strat. It's a really good one of the nicest Strats I've ever played, and don't be going, you know, I have played lots of Strats from like just before Christmas, like was it $2,500 for a modern one, and then I used to know someone had a 1969 one, and it wasn't as good as this. Oops, can't say that. Fender got very bloated in the 70s. But it's just such a great, unbelievably bassy sound on the neck pickup. And then unbelievably trebly on the bridge pickup. And you have them both on at the same time, so you get unbelievably bassy and unbelievably trebly. Turn down the bass a wee bit. And you can play the heavy metal on both of them, but the hardtail makes it a little bit better for them. ultimately, I think it comes down to if you've got like any sort of we might get a bit of a live. 15 minutes in, I'm going to have to pause it, haven't I? Maybe I'll cut it in. That's the Royal Mail Parcel Force just turned up. So I'll just. Oh, there we go. He's looking through the wee boxes. He's looking through the wee boxes. He's found that big, massive box. Jesus, that's a huge box. With guitar written on it. I wonder what it is. Yeah, that'll be a guitar then.
Aye. Kyle.
Kyle, yeah. Looking at it going, that's a guy I've protected from.
Alright.
Okay, cheers. See ya. What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box? The next video, because I think that was just a Telecaster one, I'll probably just put these two out immediately, so I'll get twice as many views. I told you I was going to try and get extra views. See you in, I'll put this out like an hour after the, I'll put this out an hour before the next video. I'll put this out at the normal time. This video, the opening one will be after it. Rock on!